Welcome. My name is Sharon Bonney. I'm the Executive Director for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, which is Social Media Strategies to Advance Your Mission. We're going to go to the next slide, please. I have with me here today Patricia Tyler, who is the Executive Director for the National Council of State Directors of Adult Education, as well as Jeff Arnott from Brevard Public Schools, and Chris Binnix, who's on our staff here at COABE. He's our Marketing Coordinator. Before we get started, I wanted to mention that we have a really cool new tool that enables you to connect with your legislators very quickly. It's a rapid response tool. And just by clicking on the link there, and we've also put it in the chat box for you, you can connect directly to your legislator and send a quick email to them or make a phone call, letting them know that adult education is really important. And I'm really delighted to share with you that we've had over 15,000 contacts with legislators since February 1st, just using this tool. So we want to encourage you during this webinar, take a few minutes and contact your legislator. Okay, with that, I'd like to turn this over to Marianne. Marianne is with the Full Capacity Marketing, and she is working with Selena Shands, who is out for the day. So Marianne will be our primary presenter, Marianne Conlon.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here, and I'm excited today to be able to talk to you about our social media plan. We are doing a webinar today, but first I'd like to put some housekeeping issues there. First, I want to tell you, as Sharon mentioned, there is a chat box, and the chat box will allow you to talk with your peers and with your presenters. So you are in listen-only mode, so you will need to use the chat box to be able to communicate. You can also type your questions either in the chat box or in the Q&A box. Either one is fine, and Chris and Sharon will be monitoring that. And a little later on in the presentation, I will be asking about the questions, and we'll try to answer some of those, and some of them will be answered in real time. I'd also like to let you know you can always raise your hand if you want, just to be able to tell us that you're here. So if you can all just do that now and put in the chat box, that would be great. You put in your name or where you're calling from, how many of you are here, and any burning social media questions you'd really like us to answer. So if you can do that now, that'd be great. And we'll go ahead and get started then. We've got a really exciting lineup here today. The social media topic I know is very interesting to a lot of people, and a lot of you are going to have questions. And I know a lot of you use social media. A lot of you use it personally to keep in touch with far-flung friends and family. And most of your organizations have a social media account. But today we're going to specifically talk about using it for advocacy to advance your mission to support adult education. So we're going to be talking about creating a social media strategy for advocacy. And then Chris is going to take you through the Educate and Elevate campaign social media channels. And we're very excited about how we've been able to extend this campaign onto social media. We're also going to show you how to use the campaign tools that we have in the Educate and Elevate toolkit. A lot of those can be used to develop social media posts. And then Jeff, then we'll be talking about using Twitter for advocacy specifically. And we'll be sharing success stories, and Jeff Arnott from Brevard County Public Schools is going to be sharing some good things, successful things that he's done with his social media accounts. We'll also be talking about using Facebook for advocacy. In particular, we're going to be talking about their new town hall function. And we'll finish up with best practices for Twitter and Facebook. So let's get started. So a lot of you have social media channels for your organizations. Probably many of you have YouTube, you may have Twitter and Facebook, and you may have Snapchat or looked at Instagram or some of the other ones that are out there. But in terms of for advocacy, Facebook and Twitter are really all you need. And with social media, you always have to focus your efforts because you know how long it takes to do social media correctly. So today we're going to be talking about Facebook and Twitter and how we're using them and why everyone's using them. Basically, most advocacy organizations are using Twitter and Facebook primarily. So why? Well, the reason is kind of like the old bank robber joke. Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Well, that's why we use Twitter and Facebook for advocacy, because that's where our influencers are. And if you think about it, the whole reason that we're using social media for advocacy is to influence policy. So when we look at where are the policymakers, they're primarily on Twitter and Facebook, and you know that starts with the president on down. We also, you may know that the Department of Education has over 35 Twitter accounts. So as you look here on the slide here, you'll see a list of some of them. And because we're in a transitional stage with the administration, some of them are active and some are not. But these are all ways to talk to staffers, interns, policymakers themselves, and you know many of them have their own personal accounts. And it's not only on the federal level, but when you get down to the state level, it's an unusual state senator, representative, or even local official that doesn't have a Twitter and usually a Facebook account. And often at the city level or the state level, you'll have multiple accounts for multiple initiatives. So it's worthwhile to find those and connect with those as part of your social media strategy. The other key people that you want to connect with on social media, particularly on Twitter, is your media. Because I want to back up a second and say, why does anyone use Twitter? And Twitter is an interesting tool because the people who use Twitter are using it as a soapbox. Those are the primary users. It's not like Facebook, which over 80% of the population is on. It's not like Snapchat or Instagram where you have a huge percentage of young people. It is primarily as a soapbox. So one of the key things that you need to do is create an existing list of media contacts to follow on Twitter and follow on Facebook as well. And if you look at the last webinar, or if you want to go back into the archives, there are some excellent tools that can show you how to build your media contact list. One of the tricks of having a successful advocacy program is following both the outlet and the reporter account. So that would be meaning something like, if you're going to follow the Washington Post, also follow Emma Brown, because she's the education reporter for the Washington Post. So you know that she is going to be somebody who will be interested in what you have to say. If you go to the Education Writers Association or follow Carolyn Hendry on Twitter, you'll also find a list of a lot of reporters who cover education, some who might be in your local area. And don't forget bloggers and local community papers. Many communities have local, weekly, monthly papers, and those types of reporters are always looking for stories. So it's a good opportunity to get your name out there, both on social media and to get opportunities to have additional press. Also search your city, county, and state. One of the things that you may want to do in your description to make sure that you're including your city or your state or your county, because other people will be using the search functions on both Twitter and Facebook to look for other people to connect to, and that includes reporters and policymakers and influencers. So engagement is something that we're going to be talking about a lot in this interview, in this webinar. But what I first want to talk about is a little bit on how to find some of these people. And this is for both for the press and for your legislators. Particularly, and again, I'm going to be talking about Twitter primarily because Facebook is a different issue and we're going to be talking about that later. But they have a search function. This is Florida Day, so I am calling in from Palm Beach. So you'll see I put in the Palm Beach Post, which is the primary paper in this area. But what you'll see is that it brought up a lot of other names of people who are interested, who are in my area. And so that is a way to be able to find a larger range of influencers, of people to talk with and engage with on Twitter and Facebook. And one of the things you want to do is retweet their stories, or you can reach out by private message if there's initiatives that align, that there are stories that you think they would be interested in, or if there's a particular issue that a policymaker might be working on that would make sense with your particular initiatives. And now I'd like to just talk a little bit about the Educate and Elevate social media campaign. As I said, we've really invested in adding a social media element to the campaign. And so we have a dedicated Twitter account and a Facebook account and official hashtag. And to help talk about this is going to be Chris Phoenix. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let him come on. Chris, can you share your screen?
Yes, thank you, Marianne. Just bringing it up now. Can everyone see?
We sure can.
Okay. So what I'm going to show you first is actually our social media newsroom that is on the Educate and Elevate site. And actually, when we're talking about social media also, we also have to talk about our website. Your website is basically the hub of everything you want to place and have, and so you have your feelers go out there through social media. Now on our website, we have the social media newsroom, which is easily accessed here. And basically, if we scroll down, it shows our two feeds of our two campaign social media profiles. Looks like Twitter's not populating at the moment, but these are also easy ways for you to like us, follow us, and please do, because we have a lot of great things going out. So I'm going to show you right now the Twitter. Pretty simple. You have your tweets, you have your everything else that's there to help you get your campaign launched and get communicating with the legislators and media outlets that are out there. The feed is in the middle here. It's great to have a photo attached to whatever you are saying. I'm going to flip over to the Facebook side. You know, it's a little different, but it's basically the same look. To see, you want to have a consistency so people know you are you, basically. Having that same kind of branding, that same kind of look. So if they look for you in one place and then they go look for you at another, you want to keep it kind of consistent so they understand across the board. As you can see here, through all three, we have the same kind of branding and color scheme and everything else, so they know it's us. And if we look down here again, same thing, feed, photos, and everything we put here that helps us get the message across to the media outlets and everything like that. And I'm gonna switch back to the PowerPoint. All right, there you go, Marianne.
Thank you very much, Chris. I am going to continue on to just kind of recap what Chris was saying, so that you have on the Twitter account, we're going to be doing a 2 to 5 daily posts and building a following with legislators, press, and members. And I have the account listed there, the website, so you can go directly to Elevate Adult Ed on Twitter. And then we'll also be doing the having the Facebook page that we will be. Excuse me just a second. I seem to have not been able to advance here. So on the Facebook account, we'll also be able to see, be having a 2 to 3 posts per week, and we'll be building a community of students, advocates, and educators. And you see it's a little bit different on Facebook, where we can actually talk to different people who are not necessarily policymakers and press, but as those of you who are on Facebook, which I imagine would be a large percentage of you, you know that you can contact a lot of people who can help spread your message. So before I move on to posting ideas, I'd like to go ahead and answer any questions. And I I think there were a few here that Sharon had, that Sharon, that you found. Is that you had a couple that?
I would be glad to answer a few questions, yes. So we have a question regarding whether or not the recording will be replayed and available tomorrow, and yes, indeed it will be. We will be sending it out. We'll be sending it out in an email tomorrow around 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. As well, we'll be posting it to the Educate and Elevate webpage. Also, I wanted to mention to everybody that you will receive a certificate of attendance simply by attending this webinar, and that can be used for CEUs as well. And then I did want to also mention that all of the resources we're talking about today will also be posted on our learning forum, but that will all come to you tomorrow in an email as well. There is another question here, Marianne, which I think we're going to need your help on. And this person is asking, she's saying that her school does not allow her to have a Facebook page, and they're not interested in having a Facebook page there at her school. Is there anything that you would recommend that she do to get her school on board?
Well, I think that if it's it could be a legal or a procedural issue, in which case I think that I would probably toss that back to Sharon. But if you can start a page, perhaps not for the entire organization, but for an initiative, that might be a way to start. Have a Facebook page for an event that you're having, and that may help show your administrators that it's an effective tool for you. That would be my recommendation.
Great. And then there's another question saying, I understand your comment regarding following media and reporters, but they don't seem to follow us back to see our content. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yes, one of the things that I would suggest is going to be, as I said, make sure that you're putting your city or state into your description, particularly on Twitter. And also, if you engage, one of the key tools with Twitter is if you do 5 posts a day, 3 of them should be engagement posts, and 2 of them should be broadcasting out your message. So the more that you retweet other people's posts and you engage with them by mentioning, you can do something as simple as saying, this is a great article from, and name the reporter, and then pass it on to your following. That obviously comes up in your notifications, and they see that you're engaging with them, and that makes people more likely to follow.
Great, thanks. And then there's one more question here, and I think we're going to be, talking about this later on in the session, but the question is, how do you decide what content to post on Facebook versus Twitter?
Okay, yes, we will be talking about that a little bit later, and primarily you are posting similar content, but how you're posting differs because your audience is different and because the channels are different in what they allow on there. So that's going to be the big difference. And I did see one more question about how to build a following, and I'll talk a little bit about that because we did have, we were talking about following people and engaging with people. That is your key way to develop a following, is follow people, engage with them. If after a few months people don't follow you, delete them and follow other people. And you can use tools by looking at people who follow you, and Twitter will give you suggestions for who you should follow. On Facebook, it's a little bit different. You're really more looking at using your communities, using your friends, your educators' friends, your students' friends. So it's very important to get everybody that you know in your immediate community to follow the Facebook page so that it then starts going out in their stream and it builds from there, and asking them to ask their friends. So Facebook is much more organic in terms of growth.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks so much, Marianne. Those are all the questions for now.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and give you some more posting ideas. And what I want to start with is, how can you use the Educate and Elevate toolkit to develop posts? Well, we have a number of things in here that can help you develop posts for both Facebook and Twitter. And the Legislator Talking Points, which is in the Campaign Toolkit, is a great start. There are If you're looking on the right-hand side, you see that I pulled up a picture of the legislator key facts, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, about 10 different posts right there that you can use for, or maybe 11 if you, depending on how you split it. You can use them just the way they are and putting in some hashtags or putting in personal comments about your specific organization. So something like 92% of business leaders thought the U.S. workers were lacking the necessary skills. That's true in our neighborhood here in Kansas City. So you can really localize a lot of these and even substitute your own statistics that are relevant for your community. Another option is telling mini success stories on Facebook or linking to your success stories on the Educate and Elevate site. And I'm going to give a little pitch here for everyone to please add your success stories to the Educate and Elevate site. We have a couple different places, student success stories, and we're really looking for employer success stories as well. But then you can link to them on your Facebook page and on your Twitter page. They're really good on Facebook because you have a human element. You can also link to local news articles that feature your students or programs. It doesn't have to be about adult education. It can be about your students in some other role in their life. And finally, you can retweet or share posts from the Educate and Elevate Twitter and Facebook accounts. So just some ideas on this. How do you really make an effective post? Well, on Twitter, you obviously have a limit of characters, but you don't have a limit of photos. You can post several photos on there at a time. And on Facebook, you can do an entire carousel of photos as well as do video on both platforms. So one of the things that I always like to remind people is you are carrying a camera around in your pocket all the time. You can use it for social media. We've gotten much, much, much less, I should say we've become more casual in what is acceptable photographs. Take photographs in your classrooms, at your events, around your campus. You know, something as simple as humanizing your campus is fine too. If there's ducks floating, you know, coming around someday, or it's a beautiful sunset, that's fine too, because it really gives your account a feeling of being personal, which is really what you want to get to. Can you arrange for photos in your CTE classes? If your students are doing something interesting that is visual, those are great posts to put on there. And sometimes if you have students that are doing several different things, you can post a series in a carousel. There's also photos of student work or employer partners can show success stories in a visual way. And then if you go into the toolkit again, we have this infographic, which you can create and post as one post, the infographic, or you can cut it up into pieces and post each of those as a little mini graphic with the appropriate post. And then finally, you can also link to the Educate and Elevate video in your social media posts, and that's on YouTube, but you can link to it in your toolkit. And I'm including this just as a quick slide. It is also in the Learning Forum. But one of the things that's very important when you're visual is making sure your sizes are correct. And both Facebook and Twitter change the sizes that they use very frequently. So it's important to check every couple months. If you look, I put the website down below that this is a HubSpot, and they tend to keep it up to date. So you always know what are the right sizes for cover photos and profile photos. So that would be important to just keep an eye on. And then using hashtags. One of the things that people are unclear on hashtags is how many should I use? So I have a little statistic here. The tweets with 1 or 2 hashtags have higher engagement, whereas tweets with more than that have lower engagement. So it's important that you don't get overkill with the hashtags. We have our Educate and Elevate hashtag, as we talked about earlier, but there's also the National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, AEFL, and then there's hashtag GED, Adult Education, Skills Gaps. I just put a few on here that are education oriented. But to get your message out to even a broader group, think about using things like success or winning, hard work, motivation. There are a number of different hashtags out there that will connect. In particular, things like motivation or hard work, those are used often by employers or by people within the community. So you can look at getting your word out there by using these hashtags, and it kind of extends it a little bit farther. So I wanted to show you a couple sample posts as well. These are 3 posts that will be going up on our social sites. And we have one, the first one being for Twitter, which is taking the infographic that we had and cutting a piece of it and adding the 2 hashtags of adult education and educate and elevate. And then the second one, the middle one, we're really talking about a company that really supports us, Dollar General. But you can take this particular type of post, put your company name in your neighborhood or in your community, and if they found someone that one of your students is working for them, you can put in found the skilled workers they need because of adult education. So you can also put a call to action, let your legislator know you support adult education, and you can either link to the story or you can link to a legislator site, their Facebook page. And then finally, the last one is another opportunity on Facebook where you can take photos of your students and be able to post them. I'm going to ask, I think that most of you probably have a release form, but if you don't, I can put one in the learning forum for you. So some very simple ones that you can keep with you so you can get releases from your students when you need them. Okay, before I move on to using Twitter for advocacy, I want to see if we could do a poll, Sharon.
We sure can. Yep.
Okay.
I'll launch it right now.
Thank you. If you can just take a second, this kind of helped me let me know what your organization does right now, and as you get to some of the questions that come along, we'll be able to help you address those as well. And I'll come back a little bit later and find out what the poll answers are. Okay, I think has everyone pretty much had time to do that? Because I can start back and talk about Twitter for advocacy. Okay, for using Twitter for advocacy, as I mentioned, is really a key tool. And there's a couple different things that you can do. You can link to press releases, photos, other information. You can tweet directly to your policymaker or members of the media. Now, tweeting directly to your policymaker, you have to remember that you're not tweeting to your policymaker. Generally, you're tweeting to somebody who is monitoring their account, particularly as you get to the state and federal level. So you're talking to staffers, which is not a bad thing, because a lot of times they're going to be able to get your message out. And if enough people continue to spread that message, your policymaker is going to hear it over and over again. It's particularly important to tweet the action you want your members of Congress or your legislators to take. What exactly do you want to vote on when you're mentioning the bill that they're working on, or if you're mentioning an initiative they're working on? That's really helpful because then it gets picked up by a number of different people, including the press that's writing on that initiative, as well as different members of Congress or different policymakers that are also following that particular action. You want to be a part of the broader conversation too, particularly in your community. It is really a good idea to, the first people that you follow on Facebook and Twitter should be other organizations in your community. And that's not only those involved with adult education. That can be any nonprofit in your area. It can be for-profit local businesses that you might be able to do complimentary promotions with, or you might be able to invite to your events. Don't discount smaller local businesses, even if they might not be hiring your students. They may be someone that can promote your message and promote your initiative in your community. And finally, scan the news for shareable articles. One of the things that's important to do is to really but make sure that you're watching the news and something interesting. You don't want to always talk about yourself. So there are some suggestions that I had here was perhaps in your community, you can look at special dates and tweet out or put on Facebook special things that happen on your community on different days. Talk about the history, or even just really look at a lot of K-12 stories, because as we know, often K-12 students have parents who could benefit from adult education. So these are a few of the ideas for using Twitter for advocacy. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Arnott, who's going to talk about some of the successes he's had with social media. Jeff, are you ready to share? All right.
I am ready, Mary Ann, whenever you are.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, you have the screens, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
And I'll actually share the Twitter page too that we have on our Facebook page. Well, anyway, when Mary Ann's doing that, just wanted to give you some stats about our social media pages and actually follow through with a couple questions that folks have had as well. The first one I had is it worth your district won't let you have it? That's a fight worth fighting, by the way. I would say we, in our district, we were always pretty open with social media, but when it came to advertising on social media and so forth, I definitely had to, not pick a few fights, but actually had to advocate for that. So I would say it is a fight worth fighting, because it is. It's all about business. It's all about advocating. It's all about sharing your story and promoting your brand. In addition to showing off this, one of the most important part is showing off the success stories that students have. If you notice on our Twitter page at the very top, that is one thing you definitely want to share on your pages is students being successful. And that picture there was actually taken one of our school board members at one of our graduations when she was on the stage. And so she sent it to me, and I use that one all the time. So yes, definitely, show those stories, and I'll show you a couple other pictures a little bit later. But yeah, we have over 3,000 followers on Twitter. We have over 11,000 followers on Facebook. And here's some examples of what we've used to partner with some of our stuff. Marco Rubio's aide for Florida, Thomas Self, came over to visit, and you notice that little phone board sign I have him hold. Those things are about $5 or $6 to make. Your print shop can make them. And actually, that step and repeat banner is actually in my office. So if anybody comes in, they can take pictures of them, make them feel like rock stars, and everything, to get that open line of communication with any business partner, any advocate, or anybody who comes in, or students. I'll put students in front of it holding a phone board that says, I just got my GED or my adult high school diploma, to make them feel special. And what they'll do is on Facebook especially, they'll forward that picture to many different people, and next thing you know, you have other people emailing you or going into the direct message room asking you for more information how they can get their own GED. And actually, our superintendent stopped by. He's over there on the right, Dr. Blackburn. He came by. I had him hold the sign up and take a picture. And also, it's a great thing to link with our business partners. Community Credit Union, the young lady over here on the left, they have a debit card that we have a deal with them with. So they give us $25 every time I plug their photo. And of course, I always take them to graduation. So those are some great things. And like I said, they get retweeted and all kinds of stuff. Also, if you're a director or president of a college or something, I really believe that you need to have you need to be active in your own Twitter account, kind of like the president, and in addition to the one that you have for your program itself, because this way I can actually communicate some of the great things I'm seeing and everything. I myself personally have over 2,000 followers on Twitter, and a lot of them are students. I always tell students that's a way they can really communicate with me quickly and easily, and I even give them my phone number. I don't care. I'm a little crazy, I guess, but it's a good way for them to communicate that, and also it's a good way for me to communicate directly with legislators as well, and in a I guess you could say not as the department itself, but as myself. And it's a fun way to communicate. And we've, like I said, next slide. Or is there any more slides? Okay. Are you there? Okay.
Hold on, having a technical problem with the slide change here.
Well, no problem. I just want to make sure I was still on. But other thing, other things too. Yeah, that slide back. We had the next one. Okay, okay, I guess we're on the right spot. For instance, over here on the right is Mario Diaz Ballard. He's actually a representative in South Florida who does have good knowledge of what adult education is. And this is when I went to, the Capitol Hill days in Washington, and I sent out a tweet thanking him, and he actually liked it back, favored it. And honestly, I believe that was really him who did that. But yeah, the aides are just as important. In fact, a lot of times the aides are the folks that have the ears of those the senators and representatives. And over here, here's a picture I actually retweeted from some of our colleagues up in Connecticut during Capitol Hill's days itself. So I put that one up there because it's a good way for us to promote each other. Because at the end of the day, we are in the same business of promoting student success, and this way, we return the favors. That's what I kind of think do there. Also, with business partners, I want to tell you this one: I will not go into a contract with any vendor unless they follow us on Twitter, Brevard Adult Ed. That includes the big boys, and the big boys follow us back. The big textbook vendors, the video vendors, the computer vendors. And the reason I tell them that I really want them to do so is because if I'm catching our students doing something great with their product, I want to thank them for it. So they never argue back. They definitely will, do that. I got a question here. Do I use the Facebook group page? No, I have not, but that is something that we're getting ready to do, is to do that. In fact, I've encouraged teachers to do it. If they want to do a Facebook group with their own students for class, that's actually a pretty good idea as well. And here's a couple more tweets. Here's the board member, Tina Desovich. She's the one that took the picture up there. Someone who absolutely knew nothing about adult education, and now all of a sudden she's one of our biggest advocates. I took her on a tour of the place. She came to our graduations, and she even sent this tweet out. Had one of the best adult education programs in the state, because I say that all the time, and because I think we do. And she enjoyed visiting and learning. So I had a picture of her holding up the sign that says "I rock" and everything. And here's somebody from Representative Bill Posey's office, Mr. Jackson. He came by to visit us. So I do use Facebook as well to advocate, and thank people for sharing or listening to our message and help us promote our message. Next slide.
That's it for slides. Did you want to show them the actual counts?
Yes, I definitely will. I'll do that right now. And one other thing, let me figure share screen. Let me find it here. Here it is. There we go. Here's our Facebook page itself. If it'll let me scroll down. Yeah, here's and only get good reviews. I even put videos up. These are always popular. I actually get on the stage when I confer.
The authority vested in me by the state of Florida, Department of Education, and Brevard Public Schools, I now officially pronounce you high school graduates. Please move your tassels to the left.
So I do that right from the podium up there. I get the phone out. They know it's coming every time. But when I post it, it gets shared several hundred times. Once again, promoting your message. I know it's a little outside the box and a little unique way of doing it, but it is all about it's business at the same time. Down here, let me find some other things that I've done. These little things right here are really popular with students. I have these little phone boards. They have them hold them when they found out they got their adult high school diploma or GED. I have them hold the signs. They take pictures. I use a little program called PicMonkey. It's about $50 a year. It's pretty cheap to use to doctor these pictures up. And I put those up, and I actually give the students a copy of this. I'll go down to Walgreens and get them printed up for less than $1 a piece. And once again, students share them. They pass it on to their friends, and not only that, our logos on it or hashtags. I even put it's a great tool. I know we talked about stories. There's another good one. I always put little stories up. There was one story of a World War II veteran just got his GED, and I threw that one up there one day. It literally got shared over 200 times, and I don't know how many likes it got. So, even if it's not your own students, I do that. I put retirements up for staff members, and here's some more pictures from our graduations. So yeah, that's just a little bit about our I do happy Father's Day things and stuff. I even put these up. I might be violating every rule in the book here, but I put like quotes up from individuals. I know you talked about that. Here's one from John Bon Jovi. and yeah, just little things like this definitely work. We definitely advocate for. We actually promote our business partners as well, like Eastern Florida State College. That we partner with them a lot on different initiatives. So I'll put up stuff for them. And yeah, it's just a great way to communicate. Here's a community partnership we have with the Family Literacy Program in Merritt Island that was real successful. We like showing it off. And do I control the page? I know I get that question a lot. Yeah, I am very hands-on, and I think for it to be successful, you have to promote it, let everyone know you have the pages. And in fact, anybody from Florida knows me well enough that every time I get in front of a crowd, I always remind them to follow our social media pages at Brevard Adult Ed. In fact, I encourage everyone who's on today to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Brevard Adult Ed. It's right there on the screen. And that's all I got. If you want to, let me get rid of my screen here. You might be able to do it, maybe.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, we're good. That's good.
So we just need you to stop sharing your screen there at the bottom.
Okay. I think I did.
All right. Yes. Before I even move forward, I just want to comment that Jeff just did a great job of kind of showing the point that I made about Facebook being the personal and Twitter more being the professional. In other words, the organic growth that he talked about, that he shares with the students, who share with their friends, who share with their friends. And that's really important for building on Facebook. As I said, Twitter's a little different, but for Facebook, the more you can highlight your students, the faster that you will grow. Okay.
I'm still trying to get this off. Hold on.
I think I'm just going to boot you off here.
Oh, boot me off. There you go.
Okay. All right.
And Marianne, whenever you're ready to, we can also share the results from the poll as well.
Oh yeah, would you do that now? That's a good idea. Thank you.
Sure. Hopefully everybody can see that.
Yes, it looks like everyone, about half of you have a Twitter account, and almost everyone has a Facebook account, which is kind of like the general statistics for Twitter and Facebook in general. Most of you feel that you do a fair job on social media, I see, but some of you do excellent. That's great. And actually, the last question I had there, what is your biggest challenge on social media? I really thought that finding the resources is going to be very high up there. And so we hope that you'll get some ideas today. And I'll be talking about that a little bit later, with a second choice of measuring your efforts. And that's going to be something that we're going to chat about as well. So that's great. Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Okay. So what I want to talk about just for a couple minutes, and we talked about Facebook, and I think Jeff, and as I've looked at the chat, the chat questions and answers too, you can use Facebook groups and you can use Facebook causes, but Facebook, a regular Facebook page, is your best bet, particularly if you have resource issues. You can only concentrate on so many things at a time. So I recommend that you always start with the Facebook page. And then now another reason to use a Facebook page is there's a new feature called Facebook Town Hall. And can anybody who's used that please put in the chat function if you've had any experience with that? Just let us know if you've done anything, because we'll ask about that a little bit later. But this is pretty new, and this is a call to action icon that allows you to directly address a legislator when you create a post. So when you're bringing up on your Facebook page, you can see what I have on the screen here is what it looks like when you post, write something, it says, or share something. So if you look at the bottom, and you probably use this to add a picture, that left-hand icon, if you go over a few, you have the emoji, you can add location. The next one is the town hall button. And what this does is add the name of a representative to your post. So I'll show you how this works. What happens is you start to type the name of the legislator. In this particular one, we use Maria Cantwell. Her name and contact information, including her phone number, will come up in the post. So when your followers see that post, they can immediately contact her via her Facebook page or via telephone. It's a great way to let your followers advocate for your cause. Now, if you look on the right-hand side there, though, underneath her name and photo to the far right, you see Find Your Reps. That allows your followers to be able to find additional people to share this with, and perhaps they want to share it with both of their senators, so they might want to share that on their wall or call them as well. So it's a great way of getting your message across. Now, every user also has a town hall function on their personal page. If you click on the left-hand side, if you click on Town Hall, which you see down there under shortcuts, you'll have to hit the See More button, and then you'll see Town Hall. When you click that, that will bring up a list of your legislators, and that will bring up your senators, your representatives. It'll sometimes bring up your local, state, and local representatives as well, but you could play with that a little bit if you haven't done so already. So this is a wonderful feature for nonprofits, and not that many people are using it right now. Now, obviously with Facebook and with Twitter, as you know, with all social media, things seem to change all the time. So I want to show you two different sites where you can keep up on additional changes. Facebook has a Town Hall project page. You can just put that right into Google, and that will help you keep track if they add new functions, which they probably will, or if they change where you're finding something. And also another one to look at is Action Sprout. They tend to keep track of these sorts of things, and you can read more about how to do it if you need to find that information. And remember, this webinar will be archived, so you will be able to find those if you didn't write them down just now. So I just want to spend a second to just go over the calls to action we have from today's meeting. One of the things is dedicate one staff member to manage accounts. And I know that a question came up about resources, and we showed that in the poll. So I have a couple of ideas for you. One of the ideas is really set yourself a schedule. If you're setting to post on Facebook 3 times a week is fine. You don't have to try to post every single day. Perhaps there's additional times you might want to post, but if you can just stick to 3 a week on Facebook, and 3 to 5 a day on Twitter. You have to do more on Twitter, but most of those you don't have to create. You can interact with people. So if you create early in the week the 3 things that you want to broadcast, or the 2 things you want to broadcast every day, and then spend another period of time during the day just interacting with someone, retweeting or commenting on something. And that is actually a pretty quick thing to do. I suggest that if you're managing it yourself, you make sure that you have Twitter and Facebook on your phone, because it's a whole lot easier to remember to do your postings when you can do it while you're standing in line or at the doctor's office in the waiting room or something like that. It's much easier to do it on your phone. And then the other thing that you might look at doing is looking at, with the community colleges, if you partner with them, if they have any courses, in particular marketing courses. A lot of times there are courses where they will have, where a student either at your community college or at your 4-year university will have as a requirement to manage a social media site. So it's worth asking about that. And the third thing that I would recommend is also be aware of things like Takeover Tuesday. That's a pretty common where someone will take over your account, and you might have a student that you might have them take over an account for the day on a Tuesday. You might just ask one of your students to handle the account for the day. So those are just some ideas of how to get that resource issue handled. As I said, commit to posting on a regular basis and tracking metrics. If you have not looked at the back end, there's analytics on both Facebook and Twitter that you can look at that will show your follower growth and show your mentioned growth. That is the best way to track, and it's very much like tracking your public relations efforts. You can't necessarily track the end game through your analytics, but you can track how much impression you're making. And as I think Jeff had pointed out, he's actually gotten some people to be able to tweet back and message back to them, and they're actually seeing the policymakers have seen it. The other thing you want to do is remember to make it fun, and Jeff showed the very young John Bon Jovi picture there, which was fun. And that is an idea to things to do to make your Facebook and your Twitter page fun. Do motivational quotes are really popular, and I think they fit very well with adult education. Some of you are in areas where there's a large ESL population. It is a very good idea, if you can, to also tweet and post on Facebook in Spanish or Vietnamese or whatever your language is that's very common in your area. One question I've gotten before, though, is that should I create a separate account for, say, Spanish? The answer is no. It's hard enough to handle one account. Keep it into one account in both languages. We want to remember to do photos and infographics because those resonate with not only members of Congress, but with the general public and with the press. And don't neglect following those staffers and press. And one of the last things to remember is to reinforce back home when you're talking to your state or your national representatives. You are back home. You are who they are representing. So when you can really emphasize that this is something that's important to them because it's representing their constituents, that's a very good idea whenever you can put that into there. So that's about it. We have a few more webinars coming up. Let me just run over these last webinars. You want to review all of them before you finish before you start with your social media, because there's a lot of ideas in there, particularly in the working with the press and the event webinars, because they talk a lot about using social media. Set up your Twitter and Facebook accounts. It sounds like everybody has them. Don't forget to follow us on Educate and Elevate on both Twitter and Facebook. On your personal account too, again, because that's building organically. Follow your legislators, staff, media outlets, reporters, and social media accounts, and try out Facebook Town Hall. Give it a shot. So I wanted to mention that we'll have a few more webinars coming up. August 18th is the next one, and then we'll be also doing one data for storytelling, which will be the date will be announced very soon. So Sharon, are there more questions right now?
Yes, and Marianne, thank you so much for your work on this. I just wanted to chime in that the webinar on the 18th is actually for state association presidents and state directors. So for those two folks, every state director and every state association president, we hope that they'll join us. That is specifically about mobilizing your state for the Educate and Elevate campaign. So we're really hoping to have some great turnout on that. We did have a question here regarding if it was okay to be posting pictures of students, or do they need to have a new form every time a student's picture is posted?
You can, when I put the form up, I will put up two versions of that one, which is a can we do this specific picture, and then you can use the form that can say, can we always use your picture? So yes, you can use one as long as it says so in the release form.
Another question, we want to brag about our graduates, success stories, etc. What are some perspectives on challenging perceived stigma with adult high school or GED students who may be hesitant to share their stories or pictures due to their non-traditional paths?
I think that the thing is keeping it positive. As long as it's from a positive level, then your success stories are going to be open, and it will be positive for everyone. I don't know if Jeff wants to comment on that as well. Did you have some?
Yeah, it's I will say that question's a good question. At first, there was students that were hesitant to take pictures, holding the phone boards and so forth, and then after a while, it just stigma just kind of went away on its own. And we did do a video campaign. We actually had campaigns of graduates and everything. If anyone wants to tweet me or email me, I'll be more than happy to send you some of those short videos that we did. Showing students successful now and about how adult education changed them. And now I'm getting to the point now where students come to my office angry because nobody took their phone board picture and stuff. They wanted to show it off on social media. So it does take time. And I know that question came up here too. How many of our students follow us on Facebook? We have about, like I say, over 11,000, and I would say 5,000 of them are students. Now we do push it very hard. But you know, that's one thing you got. It just doesn't automatically take off itself. You really have to, you know, fight for literally every Facebook follower. So yeah, that's one thing about it. And the question always comes up, especially on Twitter. Some students go, hey, or Instagram especially. It's like, if we follow you, will you follow me back? I'm like, sure. You know, what do I have to lose? Following back students. And also the photo picture, that's a good one too. When students enroll, we actually ask them if it's okay to use their image, and only a handful out of the thousands that we've served have said no. Most of them do like to have their pictures out there. So we just get those release forms ahead of time, just so, you know, when those graduation pictures are up there, obviously we have people, you know, on there. So, but anyway, that's a little bit more about us.
Thanks, Jeff. That was a great perspective on that. So I want to tell you that the conversation continues in the Learning Forum. So please continue to post your ideas, your questions about social media. If you have tips that you would like to share with people, if somebody has a release form that they really like, that's great that they use. Or if you have other things, tools, a lot of people use Canva for their pictures, which is a free tool. Jeff has another tool he uses. There are gift bakers. There's all sorts of interesting things. If you have some tools and you like them, please share them. Share some of your success stories, and also we'll be answering some of the questions there. And this is the address on the Learning Forum. And I'm going to turn it over to Pat, who's going to finish off here, unless we have any more questions, Sharon.
No, ma'am, we're all set to go to Pat. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for coming today. Pat, you're muted. Oh.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay. We have up on the screen, tell us what you think. We really want to hear from you when the survey comes out. Tell us how you felt about the webinar.
Yes.
And I just want to say for myself, I thought it was great. I'm one of those people that the technology, the miracles of modern technology don't always come intuitive to me. So this was just really wonderful. But we want to hear from all of you. It's important that we know if we're serving your needs and giving you what you need to go forward with some of these concepts. And so your input is invaluable to us. And then in closing, I just want to say that on behalf of the National Council of State Directors of Adult Education, we thank Mary Ann, Chris, and Jeff for their wonderful presentations today. We also thank our partners, COABE. I am especially appreciative of the partnership between the Council of State Directors and COABE, where over 55,000 adult educators unite in a common cause for everything adult education. The partnership empowers our council to do so much more than we could do independently. So once again, I encourage your participation to complete the survey, and I thank you for participating today.
Pat, thank you so much. We too are we're delighted with the partnership. We have been so grateful to be working with you, Pat, and with Reese and with everybody there. So we just want to say thank you to everybody here that's joining with us in this campaign. I want to remind you once again, one reason why we embarked on this campaign was we wanted to really have a voice nationally. We wanted to raise our voice on Capitol Hill. So please take just a few minutes to contact your legislator. I put the link there in the chat box. And also, if you would let us know what you think of these webinars and of this campaign, the survey's right there as well. So from all of us here, thank you, and we hope to see you on the next webinar. Bye now.
Bye.